The ultimatum and the choice. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of Earth Command Station, watching the stars that had been humanity's companions for centuries. Today, those same stars brought visitors that would change everything. The massive ships appeared without warning, materializing from hyperspace like dark omens against the cosmic backdrop. Each vessel stretched over 5 kilometers in length, their hulls gleaming with an alien metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she counted the ships on her tactical display. 327 vessels, each one larger than Earth's greatest battleship. In 30 years of military service, she had never seen anything that made her feel so small. Her communication officer's voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's coming from the lead ship." Elena straightened her uniform and walked to the command center. Around her, dozens of technicians and officers worked frantically at their stations, their faces pale with fear and determination. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that would haunt human nightmares for generations to come. The being stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body covered in dark scales that shifted color like oil on water. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in clawed hands that could crush steel. Its head was elongated, with 6 eyes arranged in perfect symmetry around a mouth filled with teeth like broken glass. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am Supreme Overlord Catherine of the Valtharian Empire. Your species has been chosen for integration into our domain. You have 48 hours to surrender completely and unconditionally. Any resistance will result in the total extermination of your pathetic civilization." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Elena felt her heart pounding in her chest, but her voice remained steady when she spoke. "Get me President Jackson immediately. Priority Alpha protocols are now in effect." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out on every human world and station. On Mars, President Victoria Jackson was already in a crisis bunker beneath New Geneva, surrounded by the Global Defense Council. The red planet's artificial atmosphere dome cast everything in an eerie crimson glow, matching the mood of humanity's darkest hour. "Options," President Jackson said simply. She was a woman who had led humanity through 3 decades of expansion and prosperity, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Defense Secretary Williams spoke first, his voice shaking. "Madam President, our entire fleet consists of 800 ships. Even if every vessel performed perfectly, we couldn't defeat even 1/10 of their force. Surrender might be our only choice." General Harrison slammed his fist on the table. "Surrender. You want to hand over human freedom to these monsters. I'd rather die fighting than live as a slave." "That might be exactly what happens," Dr. Rebecca Santos, the science advisor, said quietly. "I've been analyzing their ship configurations. The energy signatures suggest weapons capable of cracking planets. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it from orbit without landing a single soldier." President Jackson turned to her intelligence chief. "What do we know about this Valtharian Empire?" Director Kane pulled up holographic displays showing alien symbols and data fragments. "Very little, Madam President. Our deep space monitoring stations picked up scattered transmissions over the past year, but we couldn't decode them. What we do know is terrifying. They've conquered at least 50 species that we can identify. Each conquest follows the same pattern: surrender or die." In the depths of Earth's most secure research facility, Dr. Marcus Chen was already working on humanity's darkest contingency plan. Project Phoenix had been theoretical until this moment, a concept so horrifying that only 12 people in human space knew of its existence. Now, as alien ships darkened Earth's skies, theory was becoming reality. Dr. Reina Patel, his closest colleague and friend, found him in Laboratory 7, staring at calculations that covered every wall. The equations described quantum charges powerful enough to destabilize planetary cores, turning entire worlds into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. "Marcus, please tell me you're not seriously considering this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes that frightened her more than the alien fleet overhead. It was the look of a man who had already made an impossible choice. "Reyna, I've been monitoring their communications. The Valtharians don't just want our surrender. They want our children for their armies, our adults for dangerous labor, and our genetic material for experiments. They've done this to 50 other species. None of those species exist anymore as free beings." She moved closer to the equations, her brilliant mind quickly grasping their implications. These charges, if activated simultaneously across all human worlds, would leave nothing for them to conquer. Marcus finished. 52 worlds, turned to ash and fire in the span of minutes. But the colony ships, the hidden stations, the generation vessels we've been secretly preparing, they would survive. Humanity would survive. Free. Meanwhile, Captain Sarah Mitchell was overseeing the most important evacuation in human history. Her fleet of colony ships had been disguised as mining vessels and research stations, scattered throughout human space under the cover of routine operations. Each ship could carry 50,000 people to safety in the deep void between stars. "Status report," she demanded from the bridge of the UA's Horizon, the largest colony ship ever built. "Evacuation proceeds at 73% completion," her first officer reported. "The civilian populations are being told it's an emergency drill. Most are complying, but some are asking questions." Sarah looked out at Earth, beautiful and blue against the black of space. In 18 hours, if their plan succeeded, that beauty might be nothing but memory and radiation. Keep loading. Every life we save is a victory against these invaders. The debate in the Global Defense Council had grown heated. President Jackson listened to arguments that would determine the fate of the human species. Some counseled negotiation, others called for a fighting retreat to the outer colonies. But Elena Vasquez, joining the meeting via secure transmission from Earth Command, presented the most difficult option of all. "Project Phoenix is ready for activation," she reported. "Dr. Chen's team has confirmed that quantum charges are in position on all 52 human worlds. The colony fleet can evacuate approximately 60% of our population to secure locations beyond enemy detection. If we activate the project, we deny the Valtharians everything they came to take." Senator Martinez stood up, his face pale with horror. "You're talking about destroying our own worlds, our own history, our own people who can't be evacuated. Madam President, this is madness. Is it more mad than watching our children turned into alien soldiers?" Elena responded. "Is it more mad than seeing our entire species erased from existence, absorbed into an empire that views us as livestock?" President Jackson called for a recess and retreated to her private office. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the alien ships in orbit around Mars, their dark hulls blotting out familiar constellations. Her personal communicator chimed, and her daughter's face appeared on the screen. "Mom, are you okay? The news feeds are going crazy, and nobody will tell us what's happening." Looking at her daughter's face, Victoria Jackson saw the future of humanity. She saw the choice between a life of slavery and the slim chance of freedom purchased with ultimate sacrifice. When she returned to the council chamber, her decision was made. "Project Phoenix is authorized," she said quietly. "May God forgive us all." The next 18 hours passed like a blur of activity and terror. Across human space, evacuation ships filled with families torn from their homes. Children cried for pets left behind. Parents clutched photographs of houses they would never see again. The cover story of emergency drills was wearing thin, but humanity's leaders maintained the deception to prevent panic. Dr. Chen worked without sleep, fine-tuning the synchronization protocols that would ensure all 52 charges detonated within microseconds of each other. A single failure could compromise the entire operation, leaving some worlds intact for the Valtharians to claim as prizes. Elena Vasquez prepared Earth's defense fleet for their final battle. 800 ships against an empire that had conquered the galaxy. The odds were impossible, but their mission wasn't to win. It was to buy time for the evacuation and to ensure the enemy never suspected humanity's true plan. As the 48-hour deadline approached, Supreme Overlord Kethrin grew impatient. His species had conquered the galaxy through overwhelming force and the terror of absolute destruction. Every species had eventually knelt before Valtharian might. These humans would be no different. But as his sensors detected the movement of human ships and the strange energy readings from their planets, Kethrin began to suspect that humanity might be planning something unprecedented, something that would challenge the very foundations of his empire's power. President Jackson stood before the activation console for Project Phoenix, her hand hovering over the control that would change everything. Around her, the leaders of humanity waited in silence, each understanding that they were about to write the final chapter of human civilization as they knew it. The countdown reached 0, and humanity's choice was made: the fire of defiance. The first Valtharian attack came at dawn on Meridian Station, humanity's furthest outpost in the Kepler system. Captain Diego Rodriguez had been expecting them, but the reality of alien assault still took his breath away. 20 massive ships emerged from hyperspace, their weapons already charging with energy that made the station's sensors scream warnings. "All hands to battle stations," Diego commanded over the intercom. His voice carried the calm authority of a man who had already accepted his fate. "This is not a drill. We are under attack by hostile alien forces." Meridian Station housed 12,000 civilians, mostly researchers and their families, studying the unique stellar phenomena of the Kepler system. Diego had been secretly evacuating them for the past day, using every available transport to ferry people to hidden rally points in deep space. Only 3,000 remained, and there was no more time. The station's defensive weapons were pitiful compared to Valtharian firepower, but Diego's crew fought with desperate courage. They launched every missile, fired every beam weapon, and activated every defensive shield. For 17 minutes, Meridian Station held against impossible odds, its defenders buying precious time for the last evacuation ships to escape. When the station finally fell, it took 2 Valtharian vessels with it in a chain reaction explosion that lit up the system like a new star. Supreme Overlord Kethrin watched the battle reports with growing unease. His forces had won, as expected, but the humans had fought with a ferocity that defied all logic. They seemed to prefer death to surrender, an attitude that would make conquest far more difficult than anticipated. War Leader, his tactical officer, reported, "The human home system is heavily defended. 800 ships in formation around their primary world. They appear to be preparing for a decisive battle." Kethrin's 6 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical displays. Something was wrong. The human fleet was positioned defensively, but their planets showed unusual energy readings. Deep beneath the surface of 52 worlds, quantum charges armed themselves with the quiet precision of destiny itself. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory one final time, watching as the activation sequences synchronized across human space. Each charge was a marvel of destructive engineering, capable of destabilizing atomic bonds at the planetary core level. When activated, they would turn solid worlds into expanding spheres of superheated plasma in less than 60 seconds. Final evacuation transports are away, Dr. Reina Patel reported from her station. Colony Fleet Alpha is beyond the heliopause and safe from detection. Colony Fleet Beta is approaching the designated coordinates in the Veil Nebula. Marcus nodded, his hand hovering over the master control interface. Population count: 43 million evacuated to the colony ships, another 15 million in the deep space stations and generation vessels. Approximately 12 million remain on the planets, most of them essential personnel maintaining the illusion of normal operations. The numbers hit Marcus like physical blows. 12 million people who would die in the next hour, sacrificing themselves so that 58 million could live free. Among those who remained were his own parents, who had refused evacuation from their home on New Beijing, and thousands of volunteers who had chosen to stay behind to operate the deception protocols. In Earth's orbital defense network, Commander Elena Vasquez prepared for humanity's final space battle. Her fleet consisted of vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts to small patrol craft, every ship humanity could muster for this desperate hour. They faced a Valtharian advance force of 500 ships, with thousands more waiting beyond the system's edge. All captains, this is Commander Vasquez, she broadcast on the fleet channel. Today we fight not for victory, but for time. Every minute we hold them here is another minute for our people to reach safety. Fight well, die with honor, and know that humanity will remember your sacrifice. The battle began when the first Valtharian ship crossed the orbit of Pluto. Elena's forces struck with coordinated precision, focusing their fire on the enemy's largest vessels. Human ships darted between the massive alien craft like angry wasps, their smaller size allowing for tactics impossible with larger vessels. Lieutenant Alex Thompson, Elena's trusted aide, reported from his sensor station, "Commander, we're detecting massive power buildups on the enemy flagship. They're charging some kind of super weapon." Elena watched the tactical display as red warning indicators spread across her screens. The Valtharian flagship was preparing to demonstrate the power that had conquered 50 species, but as the weapon charged, Elena's fleet received an unexpected transmission. "All human vessels, this is President Jackson. Project Phoenix activation will commence in 30 minutes. All ships are to withdraw beyond the safe zone immediately." This is not a request. It is a direct order. Elena felt her heart stop. 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, everything would change forever. She opened a channel to her fleet. "All ships begin withdrawal to coordinates Phoenix 7. Maximum burn. All vessels. Move like your lives depend on it, because they do." As the human fleet retreated, Supreme Overlord Kethrin made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his long life. Interpreting the withdrawal as cowardice, he ordered an immediate assault on Earth itself. 2,000 Valtharian ships dropped out of hyperspace around humanity's homeworld, their weapons trained on the blue planet that had given birth to this troublesome species. President Victoria Jackson stood in the command bunker beneath New Geneva, surrounded by the leaders who had made the hardest choice in human history. The activation console for Project Phoenix glowed with ready lights from 52 different worlds. Each light represented millions of lives, countless years of human achievement, and irreplaceable pieces of human culture about to be lost forever. "Final evacuation report," she requested quietly. "Colony Ship Horizon reports all passengers aboard and clear of the danger zone," came the response. "Generation Ship Enterprise has passed the heliopause and is accelerating toward the Andromeda vector. All deep space installations report successful evacuation and are maintaining communication silence as ordered." Victoria looked around the room at faces that had aged years in the past 2 days. These people would be remembered as either humanity's greatest heroes or its most terrible villains, depending on whether their gamble paid off in the centuries to come. "Dr. Chen, are the charges ready?" Marcus stepped forward, his face gaunt with exhaustion and grief. "All 52 charges are armed and synchronized. Activation will occur simultaneously across all worlds, leaving no time for the Valtharians to prevent or interfere with the process." And the timing. The enemy fleet is in optimal position around Earth. When the charges detonate, the expansion waves will catch their ships before they can escape to hyperspace. We estimate 90% casualties among the assault force. Victoria closed her eyes and thought of her daughter, safely aboard one of the colony ships, carrying humanity's future to the stars. She thought of the billions of people throughout history who had died for freedom, and the billions more who would live free because of this day's sacrifice. "Activation authorized," she said simply. The end came with surprising quietness. Across 52 worlds, quantum charges detonated in perfect synchronization, their energy cascading through planetary cores like wildfire through paper. On Earth, the last thing Supreme Overlord Kethrin saw was his sensors detecting massive energy releases from the planet below, expanding outward at near-light speed. New Beijing became a sphere of plasma 12,000 kilometers in diameter. Mars followed 3 seconds later, its red surface transforming into white-hot gas that had once been rock and metal, and the dreams of terraforming engineers. One by one, humanity's worlds died in flowers of nuclear fire, each death buying freedom for the survivors fleeing toward distant stars. The Valtharian ships caught in the expanding death zones were simply erased, their advanced hulls no match for temperatures that rivaled the cores of suns. Supreme Overlord Catherine's flagship, the pride of the Imperial fleet, lasted 4.7 seconds before its molecular bonds dissolved in the expanding inferno that had once been Earth. Across the galaxy, the Valtharian Empire received reports that defied belief. An entire species had chosen extinction over submission. 52 worlds had been deliberately destroyed by their own inhabitants rather than allow conquest. It was unprecedented in the Empire's 10,000-year history of expansion. In the deep void between stars, Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the colony ship Horizon, watching the long-range sensors detect the death of humanity's birth world. Around her, 50,000 refugees from Earth wept for homes that no longer existed. Children who would never see blue skies or feel rain asked questions their parents couldn't answer. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving transmissions from the other colony ships. All vessels report successful escape and are maintaining course for the rendezvous coordinates." Sarah nodded, her throat tight with grief and pride. "Send a message to all ships. Tell them that Earth is gone, but humanity lives. Tell them that we chose freedom over slavery, and that choice will define us for as long as our species exists." Commander Elena Vasquez survived the battle, her ship badly damaged but intact beyond the safe zone. She watched on her screens as the expanding plasma clouds that had once been human worlds slowly cooled and dispersed. 52 suns worth of energy, released in minutes, carrying away 10,000 years of human civilization. But from the ashes, something new was being born. The colony ships carried not just people, but human knowledge, human culture, and human determination. They carried the story of a species that had faced extinction and chosen to define the terms of its own fate. Dr. Marcus Chen, aboard the research vessel Prometheus, began planning humanity's new settlements in distant star systems. The colony ships carried technology that would allow them to terraform new worlds, build new cities, and create new homes far from the reach of any empire. It would take generations, but humanity would rebuild. The Valtharian Empire, meanwhile, faced a crisis that would reshape galactic politics. The destruction of their assault fleet and the loss of Supreme Overlord Catherine created power struggles that would consume their attention for decades. More importantly, word of humanity's choice spread to other subjugated species, inspiring rebellions and resistance movements that the Empire had never faced before. In the depths of space, humanity's children learned a new lesson about what it meant to be human. They learned that freedom was worth any price, that dignity could not be taken by force, and that sometimes the greatest victory came through ultimate sacrifice. They learned that humans did not kneel, not to empires, not to overwhelming odds, and not to those who would make them slaves. The stars remained the same, but humanity had changed forever. From the ashes of 52 worlds, a new human civilization would rise, one that would never forget the price of freedom or the courage of those who chose to burn rather than bow. And across the galaxy, when other species faced the choice between slavery and death, they would remember the humans who turned their worlds to ash rather than surrender their souls. The legend of humanity's defiance would spread from star to star, inspiring countless others to resist tyranny and choose freedom, no matter the cost. Humanity had lost everything and gained eternity.